Right, so as some of you know, for the last 5 weekends of my life, I have been portraying Robin of Locksley in the Robin Hood's Fair here. And if you want to hear about how that experience was for me as a medieval enthusiast, a living anachronism, and an actor, then go ahead and stick around for today's episode of our little candleside chat. Let me just go ahead and say though, like this is my experience working at the Renaissance Fair. I do not speak for anyone else that has ever worked at a Renaissance Fair or ever will work at a Renaissance Fair. This is how my experience went. I should say, spoiler warning, if you don't want the magic of a Renaissance Fair experience ruined for you by understanding what it is that the actors go through, you can go watch another one of my videos. I'd greatly appreciate the view. But I am going to be talking about like literally how this went today. Yeah, who knows if I'll be able to post this. I don't even know if I'll get permission because, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's not like you can't talk about it, you know, to your friends. So I don't know. Maybe they need to protect the brand, but it's not as if it's Disney, right? I'm not gonna get killed, right? I'm not gonna get assassinated for talking about this. No, you can't kill me. I'm Robin of Locksley. Because I'm not gonna say anything negative. I just want to make sure that, like, you know, I'm honoring the contract. So let's get right into it. The Renaissance Fair ran for 5 weekends, and we had 4 days of rehearsal. We rehearsed for Saturday and Sunday of 1 week, and then Saturday and Sunday of the next week, and then we opened the fair the next week. So we didn't have a storyline. Some fairs, you know, they have scripted events that the cast takes part of. We didn't have that. We spent those 4 days working specifically on our characters' mannerisms and understanding the plot, like not the plot, but like the atmosphere of the world that we were trying to create. It is the Queen's Festival. Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine was visiting Nottinghamshire for the event. And so even though it's called the Robin Hood's Fair, all the members of the cast understood and were able to speak to the audience members and say, this is a fair for the Queen that the Sheriff of Nottingham is putting on. So there were no scripts. Everything was completely improvised, and we relied on our own knowledge of the characters to have those interactions with each other and with the patrons of the fair. But we're talking about this from my perspective as a medieval enthusiast. Now, this is the first time I've worked at a Renaissance Fair, but it is not the first time I've contemplated working on a Renaissance Fair. It was also suggested to me by my boss at my job that I worked at. He was like, why don't you just work at a Renaissance Fair? Like, you're constantly wearing your Viking hood into the store. Like, this is clearly something that you like. Why don't you just go to work for a Renaissance Fair? And my response to that at the time was, because if I go to work at a Renaissance Fair, I don't know that I'll be able to enjoy the Renaissance Fair. And that is absolutely correct. My assessment of that was absolutely correct. Now, that's not to say that I didn't have a blast of a time working at the Renaissance Fair, but it is a completely different experience to actually going to the Renaissance Fair as a patron. When I originally, was talking to my boss about it, I was saying, like, I have like my own kit and my own costumes, and I want to be able to wear those things and be myself in this world that has been created for me. And I want to be able to just plant myself in it and then walk around and enjoy stuff and enjoy the shopping. And you can't do any of that when you're working the fair. Like, I barely even, I only know what vendors there are because I've talked to them, in character, essentially to make conversation and draw a little bit of a crowd around me. But I'm not able to go around and really look at things, let alone shop for them and then carry bags around with me all day. I can't attend any of the performances, really. I would go attend a performance as Robin of Locksley if I saw that a certain performer didn't have a large crowd around them. I would go. With the hopes that having one of the cast be there, oh, Robin Hood's watching this person, let's go and see what's going on, and then maybe they'd start listening, to the person, and that's excellent because it works. We're all supporting each other, very good. But I'm not really allowed to go do whatever I would like to do. It's not the same thing to enjoy a joust and sit and watch it as it is to literally physically lead an entire section of people in their joust cheers. It's physically taxing. It is taxing on the voice, and it requires an incredible amount of mental quickness in order to do it well and keep the crowd energized and keep them going. Because anyone can just shout at people, but it takes, I'm like tooting my own horn about how epic I am. I'd never done it before, and it was something that I was really apprehensive about doing, but it was something that I really ended up enjoying, and something that I think I ended up doing very well. But all of that to say that working the Renaissance Fair is not at all the same thing as getting to go to a Renaissance Fair. Like, it's not like, oh, like I get to go to the Renaissance Fair every time it's open for free. It is that, but it is not the same. Like, you are working, and you are working hard. You know, if you're doing it right, and you're not just phoning it in. Let me just say, as Robin Hood, doing archery there, you know, I consider myself a fairly competent archer. But it's nerve-wracking there, because like all of a sudden you're like standing in the shoes of one of the greatest, most famous archers in medieval European history, and it's like if you miss, like, like what is that? So my catchphrase, you know, became, "Pleasure to meet you. I am Robin of Locksley. I never miss, but when I do, it's on purpose." There are some things that I remember. There's some things that I recognize, and there are other things that are just like, there's nothing. It's not selfish to be focused, you know, on your own work while you're acting. Not that I'm not listening to other people. This is for the actors who happen to be in the audience, but it's not like I'm not listening to other people, and I'm not reacting to them and giving them what it is that they need in order to make, you know, whatever interaction or improv scene that we're doing, you know, useful. But it's just, you know, things happen, you know, so quickly, and I need to be, you know, so on to listening and just reacting to other stimuli, like the people around. Essentially what I'm saying is, I didn't have time to notice other people's costumes. Like, if you were to ask me what color belt so-and-so is wearing, like, I literally couldn't tell you, and I see them every day. And that's just because, like, my brain doesn't have the energy to spare to, like, notice those fine details, because they aren't important. So that's a little bit of insight into how it is for me to act specifically. In fact, like, I literally complimented our Queen Eleanor. I was like, "Hey, that's a really nice belt you're wearing. Is it new?" And she's like, "No, I've had it for the whole run." And I went, "Oh, I'm just noticing it." And I was like 3 weekends in. So just, you know, little tidbits about what it's like. A very specific thing that I noticed that was different between myself and other members of the cast, and that was, you know, a lot of them camp on site. I happened to live very close by to the fair site, so I'm able to go home every night and sleep in my bed with air conditioning, which for my first fair probably was a good way to do it, because at the end of day one, at least I was just absolutely exhausted, and I know everyone else in the cast is exhausted as well. Maybe your constitution score is just astronomically high, but it is tiring. You are on your feet we opened at 10:30 and we closed at 6, and that entire time you're on your feet, essentially. When I was contemplating whether or not I would stay on site in a sleeping bag, you know, I suggested to all the members of the cast, and I sent them my video of like what I did when I went medieval camping, and they were like, "Yeah, we don't do that. We would like to be as comfortable as possible." And having been through a day at the fair, now I understand why that is, because it's incredibly physically taxing. And my shoe choice was another thing that I noticed. Not that my shoes are historically accurate, but they are flat and they are very thin-soled. And you look at the boots that, you know, are sold at fairs like that, and you look at boots that a lot of the people in costumes wear, and then a number of the cast wore. And this is not to say that this is wrong. I'm just saying that my outlook on it is different, and maybe even dumber, to be completely honest, because those shoes, their boots have modern, thick rubber soles, so they're probably a lot more comfortable than I was. But I don't care, because I want to feel like they would have back in the day. Like the soles of my shoes are very thin. They do not have heels. I have ridden horses. Like, I consider, like, I can ride a horse, but, you know, Robin of Locksley and whoever it is that I'm portraying when I'm doing my own, like, you know, for fun anachronistic reenactment, like, I'm not a horseman in any of that sense. So I don't need heels on my shoes. That, and I have weak ankles, so I don't really like to deal with heels, but I can feel every stone that I step on, just as, our predecessors would have. And you might choose comfort over that. And that's perfectly valid and probably smarter, especially when we're, doing something that requires to be physically on for 7.5 hours a day. So very epic. But I am choosing to wear shoes that are less comfortable and that are not fully waterproof, and I'm enjoying it. But generally, if you're coming to a fair, it's not necessarily to get the most historically accurate feel. It helps add that little bit of immersion for me as an actor, and it just helps make it not more enjoyable. Being comfortable isn't not enjoyable, but it's just something that I noticed that was different. Given the option to wear shoes that look medieval, that are more comfortable, or shoes that are also not technically medieval, but feel more like medieval shoes probably would have, that is what I choose. Not just because it's cheaper to use what I already have, but I have what I have because it makes me feel how I will enjoy the thing. Because I am coming at it from specifically medieval historical perspective, in that, again, not that I'm a historian, but I do know an awful lot about medieval history through my own research. And I want to recreate medieval history accurately when I'm given a time period like this. We were in the latter half of the 13th century, 1280, 1290, something like that, very late 13th century. And I wanted to get as much about that correct as possible, down to the accent. So, we had to do our own accent work before we started rehearsal. A lot of the work that we did at rehearsal was just finalizing what we did as our own homework. And so when I was researching it, there's Robin of Locksley, there's Robert, Earl of Huntingdon, and then you research all of those things, and lo and behold, you find out that, there's actually 2 places called Locksley, and they're both in different places in the country, and then Huntingdon is an entirely third place. So, and none of them sound like how any person who's ever played Robin Hood has ever sounded before. And I read one article that was essentially saying that the Locksley that is being referred to, if Robin Hood existed, this would have been the Locksley that he was from. It's very near Yorkshire. So if Robin Hood spoke, theoretically, not that accents are the same today as they were back then, I know that. But, if we were going to try to literally approximate it as close as possible, someone like Sean Bean, his accent would be what Robin Hood, quote unquote, should sound like the closest thing. Huntingdon is in the south, I believe. If I'm remembering correctly, I'd have to look at the map. And then one of the Locksleys was also near Birmingham, so think Peaky Blinders. And that just sounded a little low class for me. So I went originally with trying to sound a little bit like Sean Bean. And because I'm more comfortable with an RP, received pronunciation, the Queen's English, very, very proper, very, very British. Yes. I do believe I will have my tea at noon, thank you. Essentially what happened was they changed the accent, and I'm grateful for that because as I was saying before I went off on my tangent, I have more experience with an RP accent than I do with a Yorkshire accent. So I fall into RP much easier, and I'm able to think and speak in it much quicker than I was with improvising in Yorkshire. Essentially, I did the research, I found what would be historical, and then we changed that for the sake of the fair. But you find yourself sacrificing, realism in some instances so that you can have the look that people expect you to have, if that makes sense. Or have the sound that people expect you to have. That's why we changed the accent. It isn't correct, but it is correct in terms of how fairs are structured. Fairs have their own dialects. They're designed so that when the public hears a character speak, they know something instantly about the character, and they know what status that person is, what station they are, and what it is that they're about. Are they good? Are they evil? Are all of that stuff. So you sacrifice that little bit of historical realism so that the fair can be better. And in terms of me, you sacrifice a little bit of personal comfort so that, in my own deluded opinion, the fair can be better. I don't think anyone cares about my shoes other than me. But I care about your shoes. I care about your shoes. If you're in costume and you're wearing sneakers to a Renaissance fair, bro, I got you covered. I can help you out. Go ahead and check out my very detailed video on how to put together a Renaissance Fair costume for $0. Like, I got you. You have something that you can use, and it isn't sneakers, I promise. I was commenting on this to my castmates as well, which is essentially that the people who wore the clothing and the costumes of the type that like we're wearing, like the people who wore that style of clothing never had to deal with the types of temperatures that we had to deal with. I might be wrong, but I believe that in the Middle Ages, they were, they were going through somewhat of like a mini ice age or something like that. They're in England, so it's cold and it's rainy. I just feel like it was never 90 degrees there. Like maybe I'm wrong, maybe that's me, but if it was, like, why would you wear all of that? Like, why wouldn't your clothing have developed differently? So, I could be wrong there, so, take that for what it's worth. But I just think it's bizarre that our Renaissance fairs happen in the summer and not the early spring or late fall, because everyone would be more comfortable. Everyone would be more comfortable. Like, if you're cold, put on a cloak. You can always add more layers. Like, at a certain point, you can't get any cooler though. Like, it's impossible. That and ice didn't exist back then. There's all these really cool ways that people like keep themselves cool while they're in costume. They have like bodice chillers, and like you get like cold packs and you like stick them in your thing. They didn't have any of that back then. Like, maybe that'd be a really good video, because maybe they did have stuff like that and I just don't know about it. So, maybe this is me being ignorant. But they definitely didn't have like scientific, like you break them and then they become cold. And they definitely didn't have ice cubes just like readily available in jugs. So, get it? Do you get it? Ice randomly available in jug, because they're bodice chillers. Ice available in jugs. That was clever and you know it. My perspective, as a medieval enthusiast and as an actor, I think it's pretty unique. I mean, like, not everyone who likes medieval stuff and learns a lot about medieval stuff and, fantasy stuff too, not everyone who likes all of that is an actor. And in fact, probably in terms of a Renaissance fair, those are probably, like, that's the overlap. But even then, like, I know people that are there not because they like medieval stuff inherently, but just because, it's what they're trained to do. Not like I have a vested, fanaticism for medieval history and this time period or this time period specifically, and that's why I want to be in the Renaissance Fair. And I'm sure there's a good mix of both. But I think that I, in and of myself, am a good mix of both, in that I am both, trained, in Shakespearean acting, and also really like medieval and fantasy medieval stuff. The final thing I'll close with is that Renaissance fairs, when I go as a patron, are an experience. And I go because I want the atmosphere and because I want to feel like I'm in a different world. And having acted in one now, it is a different experience. It's not that we are built, it's not that I am there and I necessarily get to enjoy the atmosphere, because everything happens very fast. And because I'm performing, I don't really get a second to just, enjoy anything. And maybe that will come with time. Maybe I'll find a better balance, if and as I continue to do Renaissance fairs in the future. But because it's a show, it doesn't provide for me the same immersion and relaxation as going to a Renaissance fair or doing reenactment, like going camping or going on a hike, would for me. Because it's not the same. It is a show, it is a performance, and I'm playing a character. And that's different than playing a persona or going to a LARP, because I have a set number of things that I'm supposed to do, and I'm doing them to entertain other people. And one is not inherently better or worse than the other. Like, I want to be very careful not to offend those who work at Renaissance fairs or those who have worked at Renaissance fairs and think that I'm wrong. Not inherently because I care whether or not I'm offensive, but just simply to state that what I'm saying isn't intended to be offensive. See what I mean? I talk so much. But as a medieval enthusiast, working in a Renaissance fair is not what I would choose to do if immersion was what I was going for. That's how I'll put it. Not that it isn't fun in its own right, not that it isn't, epic in its own right, but You know, if what I was going for was I want to do this thing so that I can feel immersed in the world, and then I can feel like what it would be like to be, you know, in a medieval, you know, setting, and like, you know, live and you know, interact with people and like make discoveries about what life was like back then. At least for me, at least right now, a Renaissance fair, it doesn't accomplish that, and that's fine, because I don't think it's meant to accomplish that. At least not for the actors. So if you're doing it for that reason, you might be disappointed. But if you're doing it because it's fun and it's in a genre that you like, it is absolutely excellent. All right, guys, my voice is getting very tired, and I've been talking about this for a very long time tonight. So we'll see what makes it into the video. And as I prepare to make the new videos for the coming weeks, and as I prepare to take the new steps necessary to continue my adventure, I want to wish you all good luck on your adventures.